When Amara Brooks stepped between a gunman's bullet and a terrified 7-year-old boy, she thought she was just saving a child's life. She had no idea she was about to become the most mocked woman in Brooklyn, the street nanny everyone laughed at for daring to care for a mafia boss's son. While Dante Moretti lay unconscious in a hospital bed, his entire criminal empire whispered behind her back, placing bets on how long the delivery girl would last in their world of marble floors and deadly secrets. But as little Nico's nightmares turned to laughter, and his father's heart monitor responded to her voice reading bedtime stories, something shifted in the shadows. The same people who had dismissed her as a joke were about to discover that underestimating a woman with nothing to lose and everything to protect was the deadliest mistake they'd ever make. Because when love becomes your weapon and family becomes your fortress, even the most feared men in the city will kneel. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story of the delivery girl who conquered an empire is just getting started. The autumn air bit sharp against Amara's cheeks as she checked her phone for the third time. 3 more deliveries. Her beat-up Honda sat at the curb, grocery bags filling every inch of the back seat. The tips from today would barely cover her sister's inhaler refill, but it was something. She grabbed 2 paper bags and hurried toward the brownstone steps. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maya. "Need my inhaler tonight. Running low." Amara's stomach twisted. The pharmacy closed at 9. She had maybe 40 minutes to finish these deliveries and race across town. She typed back quickly, "Getting it. Promise." The third delivery took her to a quiet street in Red Hook. Nice houses. Clean sidewalks. The kind of neighborhood where people didn't worry about paying for medicine. She parked and grabbed the last bags when something made her pause. A little boy stood frozen on the sidewalk, maybe 7 years old. Dark hair, pale skin, wearing a school uniform that looked expensive. He wasn't moving, just staring down the street like he was watching something terrible. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. Amara set the bags on her car roof and walked closer. "Hey, sweetheart, you okay?" The boy didn't answer, didn't even look at her. His small hands were shaking. That's when she heard the engines, fast, angry, coming this way. 2 black SUVs roared down the street, tires screaming. Behind them, 3 more cars giving chase. Amara's heart jumped into her throat. This wasn't normal traffic, this was trouble. Without thinking, she stepped in front of the little boy. "Come here, baby." The kid didn't move, like his feet were glued to the concrete. The first SUV swerved hard. A window rolled down. Amara saw the flash of metal. A gun. "Get down!" The voice came from everywhere at once. Strong hands grabbed Amara and the boy, shoving them behind a parked car. "Stay low!" Amara hit the ground hard. The little boy pressed against her chest. Above them, a man crouched, his body a shield between them and whatever was coming. She caught a glimpse of his face. Sharp jaw, dark eyes, expensive suit torn at the shoulder. The gunshot cracked like thunder. The man protecting them grunted and fell forward. Blood spread across his white shirt, dark and fast. "No." Amara pressed her hand against the boy's eyes, keeping him from seeing. "Don't look, baby. Don't look." More cars screeched to a stop. Doors slammed. Men shouted in languages she didn't recognize. The little boy started to shake harder, his small body trembling against hers. "It's okay," she whispered into his hair. "I've got you. You're safe." But she wasn't sure that was true. The man who'd saved them was on his knees now, one hand pressed to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. He was trying to stay upright, trying to keep watching the street. "Dante!" Someone was running toward them. An older man with silver hair and worry carved deep in his face. "Boss, how bad?" "I'm fine, Enzo." The wounded man's voice was rough but steady. "Get them out of here." "The hospital." "The boy first." Dante's eyes found Amara's, even hurt, even bleeding. His gaze was sharp, protective. "Both of them." Enzo looked at Amara like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Ma'am, you need to come with us." "I can't." Amara's voice shook. "I have deliveries." "My sister needs—" The little boy's fingers twisted into her hoodie strings, tight, like he was afraid she'd disappear. "The kid won't let go of you," Enzo said quietly. "And right now, what he needs matters more than anything else." Amara looked down at the boy. His eyes were huge and scared. He still hadn't said a word. More sirens were coming. Police, ambulance. The street would be chaos soon. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'll come." The hospital smelled like bleach and fear. Amara sat in a plastic chair, the little boy curled up beside her. He'd finally let go of her hoodie strings, but he stayed close. So close she could feel him breathing. "Nico," Enzo said, crouching down in front of them. "This is Amara. She helped keep you safe." So the boy's name was Nico. He looked up at her with eyes the same dark brown as the man who'd taken the bullet. His father, maybe. "Hi, Nico," Amara said softly. "Are you hurt anywhere?" Nico shook his head, but didn't speak. A nurse appeared with a clipboard. "Excuse me, are you the child's guardian?" Amara looked at Enzo. "I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time." "Or the right place," Enzo said. His voice was gentle but firm. "She stays with the boy." The nurse frowned. "I'll need to call child services." "No." Enzo's tone changed, not gentle anymore. "You won't." The nurse backed away quickly. Amara felt her phone buzz. Maya again. "Where are you?" "Pharmacy closes soon." Her heart sank. She typed back, "Emergency. We'll figure something out." Enzo was watching her. "Problem?" "My sister needs medicine. Asthma." She shrugged like it didn't matter, but her chest felt tight. "It'll be fine." "What pharmacy?" "CVS on Atlantic, but they're probably closed by now." Enzo pulled out his phone and walked a few steps away. Amara couldn't hear what he said, but his voice was quiet and sure. A doctor came out 20 minutes later. He looked tired, serious. "Mr. Moretti is stable," he said to Enzo. "The bullet went through his shoulder. No major damage, but he lost blood. The doctor paused. "He's unconscious. Coma." Amara felt Nico go very still beside her. "How long?" Enzo asked. "Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks. His body needs time to heal." Enzo nodded once. "We'll wait." "Sir, visiting hours." "We'll wait," Enzo said again. This time, no one argued. Amara's phone buzzed. "Maya, someone just delivered my inhaler." "Anonymous delivery? What's going on?" Amara stared at the message, then at Enzo. He was already looking at her. "How?" she asked. "Boss takes care of people who take care of his family," Enzo said simply. "Even when he's not awake to give the orders himself." Nico had fallen asleep against Amara's arm. She could feel his small heartbeat, steady and trusting. This little boy, who didn't know her at all, had decided she was safe. "You come with us," Enzo said quietly. "To the house." "Until he wakes up." Amara wanted to say no, wanted to go home to her normal life, her small apartment, her sister, and their quiet struggles. But Nico's fingers had found her hoodie strings again, even in sleep. "Just until he wakes up?" she asked. "Just until he wakes up," Enzo agreed. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. What if he didn't wake up? The townhouse was nothing like Amara expected. From the outside, it looked normal. Nice, but not fancy. 3 stories of red brick with window boxes and a blue front door. Inside was different. The floors were marble, real marble, the kind that probably cost more than Amara made in a year. Everything was clean and quiet and expensive. A woman met them in the front hall, silver hair pulled back tight, dress that looked like it cost a fortune. She looked at Amara like she was tracking mud on the clean floors. "This is Signora Rosa," Enzo said. "She runs the house." Rosa said something in Italian. Fast and sharp, Enzo answered back, his voice firm. "She wants to know who you are," he translated. "I told her you're staying." "I don't think she likes that idea," Amara said. "She doesn't like anything that changes her routine. You'll get used to each other." Rosa spoke again, pointing at Nico, then at Amara. This time her voice wasn't as sharp, more confused than angry. "She wants to know why the boy won't let go of you," Enzo said. Amara looked down at Nico. He was awake now, but quiet. His hand was wrapped around 2 of her fingers. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Sometimes kids just trust you, you know?" Enzo studied her face for a long moment. "Yeah," he said finally. "Sometimes they do." Rosa led them upstairs to a guest room. It was bigger than Amara's entire apartment. Soft blue walls, a bed that looked like something from a magazine, windows that faced the garden. "This is yours while you're here," Enzo said. "Nico's room is across the hall." "Where's his?" Amara hesitated. "His father's room. 3rd floor, but it's empty now." Enzo's voice went quiet. "Hasn't been used since his wife died. 2 years ago." Amara felt something heavy settle in her chest. This little boy had lost his mother. Now his father was in the hospital, maybe dying. No wonder he was so quiet, so scared. "Come on, sweetheart," she said to Nico. "Let's get you ready for bed." Nico's room was perfect. Too perfect, like something from a catalogue. The bed was made with military precision. Toys lined up on shelves like they'd never been played with, everything in its place. Amara sat on the bed and patted the space beside her. Nico climbed up, still holding her fingers. "This is scary, isn't it?" she said. "All these changes. Your dad in the hospital." Nico nodded. "You want to know a secret? I'm scared too. I've never stayed in a house like this before. I don't know what I'm doing." Nico looked up at her. "But I know one thing for sure," Amara said. "I'm going to stay right here until your dad gets better, and I'm going to make sure you're safe and fed and not too lonely. Okay?" Nico squeezed her fingers. Just once, but it felt like a promise. Amara started humming, something her grandmother used to sing, soft and low and comforting. Nico's eyes got heavy. His breathing slowed. When she was sure he was asleep, she tried to slip away, but his fingers tightened on hers. So she stayed, sitting in the dark, keeping watch. Outside, rain started tapping against the windows. The sound was gentle, almost like music. She thought about Dante in his hospital bed, unconscious, fighting to come back to his son. And she thought about Nico, trusting a stranger because sometimes that's all you have. Maybe everyone would laugh at the delivery girl trying to help a mafia boss's family. Maybe she didn't belong here, but for tonight, she was exactly where she needed to be. Morning came too bright and too early. Amara woke up in the chair beside Nico's bed, her neck stiff and her hoodie wrinkled. Nico was already awake, sitting up and watching her with those serious dark eyes. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, stretching. "Sleep okay?" He nodded but didn't speak. Downstairs, the kitchen was huge and spotless. Rosa was already there, making coffee and slicing bread. She looked at Amara and said something that sounded like a question. "She's asking if you want breakfast," Enzo translated. He was sitting at the table with a newspaper and a cup of coffee. "But she's also wondering why you looked like you slept in your clothes." "Because I did sleep in my clothes." Amara looked down at her wrinkled delivery uniform. "In a chair." Enzo frowned. The bed wasn't comfortable. Nico wouldn't let go of my hand. Something changed in Enzo's expression. Softer, like he understood something he hadn't before. Rosa set a plate in front of Amara. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit cut into perfect pieces. It looked like something from a restaurant. "Thank you," Amara said to Rosa. "This is beautiful." Rosa's stern expression cracked just a little. She almost smiled. Nico came downstairs a few minutes later. His hair was messy and he was wearing pajamas that probably cost more than Amara's car payment. Rosa fussed over him, smoothing his hair and setting a plate of pancakes in front of him. But Nico just stared at the food, didn't eat. "He hasn't been eating much," Enzo said quietly, "since his father got hurt." Amara cut a bite of pancake and held the fork out to Nico. "Want to try? It looks really good." Nico shook his head. "Okay, no pressure." Amara took the bite herself. Rosa, this is delicious." Rosa looked pleased. She said something to Enzo. "She wants to know if you're some kind of professional nanny," Enzo said. "I deliver groceries," Amara said. "And I take care of my little sister, that's about it." Rosa's eyebrows went up. She asked another question. "How old is your sister?" Enzo translated. 15. Almost 16. She's in high school. More rapid Italian between Rosa and Enzo. "Rosa says you're too young to raise a child alone," Enzo said. "People do what they have to do." Amara's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Family takes care of family." Rosa studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded once, like she'd decided something. She cut a small piece of pancake and held it out to Nico, speaking to him in gentle Italian. Nico looked at Rosa, then at Amara. Finally, he opened his mouth and took the bite. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. After breakfast, Amara asked Enzo if she could go home to get some clothes and to check on Maya. "I'll send someone to pack a bag for you," Enzo said. "I can pack my own bag." "Not safe, not right now." Amara felt frustration bubble up in her chest. "I'm not a prisoner here." "No, you're not. But you're under our protection now, same as Nico." Enzo's voice was patient but firm. "The people who shot Dante, they might come looking for anyone connected to him. That includes you now." The weight of that settled on her shoulders. She'd stepped into something bigger than she understood. Dangerous. But when she looked at Nico, still sitting at the table with syrup on his chin, she knew she couldn't leave. Not yet. "Okay," she said, "but I want to talk to my sister. Make sure she's okay." Enzo nodded and handed her his phone. "Call her." Maya answered on the second ring. "Amara? Whose number is this?" "It's me. I'm borrowing a phone." Amara walked to the window, looking out at the garden. How are you feeling? The inhaler working? Yeah, it's fine. But where are you? You never came home last night. Amara closed her eyes. How could she explain this? I'm helping someone, a family. I'll be home soon. What kind of family? Just people who need help, like we did when Mom got sick. That made Maya go quiet. She understood about helping people when everything fell apart. I'm okay, Amara said. I promise. And someone's going to bring you some of my things. Just answer the door when they knock, okay? This is weird, Amara. I know, but it's temporary. She hoped that was true. After she hung up, Enzo showed her around the house. It was beautiful, but felt more like a museum than a home. Too clean, too quiet, too many rooms that looked like no one ever used them. Dante bought this place when Nico was born, Enzo explained, as they walked through a living room with furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. His wife, Eleanor, she wanted something normal, ordinary. What was she like? Enzo's expression went soft. Kind, funny. She made Dante laugh more than anyone else could, and she loved that boy like he was made of sunlight. They stopped in front of a family photo on the mantel. Dante, younger and smiling. A beautiful woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. And Nico, maybe 4 years old, grinning at the camera. How did she die? Amara asked quietly. Enzo's jaw tightened. Car accident. But it wasn't really an accident. What do you mean? Someone wanted to send Dante a message. They staged it to look like bad luck. Enzo's voice was flat, controlled. Dante blamed himself, said he should have protected her better. Amara felt sick. Someone had murdered Nico's mother just to hurt Dante. What kind of world was this? The boy doesn't know the truth, Enzo said. As far as he's concerned, it was just a terrible accident. And Dante? Hasn't been the same since. Stopped laughing. Stopped living, really. Just exists. Takes care of business. And tries to keep Nico safe. Amara looked at the photo again. The happiness in their faces felt like something from a dream. All gone now. Come on, Enzo said. Let me show you the rest. But as they left the living room, Amara heard something that made her stop. Music. Faint and careful. What's that? Enzo listened. Piano. Haven't heard that in a long time. They followed the sound to a room at the back of the house. Nico was sitting at a beautiful grand piano, pressing keys one at a time. Not playing a song exactly, just making sounds. He looked up when they came in. For the first time since she'd met him, he didn't look scared. This was his mother's room, Enzo said quietly. She was a music teacher, used to play for hours. Nico pressed another key, then another, like he was trying to remember something. Amara sat down on the piano bench beside him. Do you know any songs? Nico shook his head, but his small hand found hers and guided it to the keys. You want me to try? She asked. He nodded. Amara hadn't touched a piano since elementary school music class. She pressed a few keys, trying to remember anything. Finally, she managed a clumsy version of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Nico's face lit up. He clapped his hands. Again? Amara asked. This time, Nico tried to follow along. His little fingers were careful and precise, even when he hit the wrong notes. Together, they made something that was almost music. When they finished, Nico looked at her and whispered one word. Piano. It was the first time she'd heard his voice. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, sweetheart, piano. From the doorway she heard Enzo's phone buzz. He answered it quietly, then came over to them. That was the hospital, he said. Dante's vitals are stronger today. Doctor thinks that's a good sign. Can we visit him? Amara asked. Enzo hesitated. It's risky, moving around the city. Please, she said. I think Nico needs to see his father. Enzo looked at Nico, who was still sitting at the piano, hands folded in his lap. Okay, he said finally. This afternoon. But we do it my way. Safe. Amara nodded. She understood that safety was everything now, for all of them. But as she sat there with Nico in his mother's music room, surrounded by the echo of laughter and love that used to fill this house, she made herself a promise. She was going to help this little boy find his voice again. And somehow, someway, she was going to help his father find his way back home. Even if everyone thought she was crazy for trying, even if they laughed, the ICU felt like another world, quiet except for the steady beep of machines, clean white walls, and the smell of antiseptic that made everything feel cold and distant. Amara held Nico's hand as they walked down the hallway. His steps were small and careful, like he was afraid of what he might find. Remember what we talked about, she said softly. Your dad is sleeping. He looks different because of all the machines helping him get better, but he's still your dad. Nico nodded, but didn't speak. Dante's room was at the end of the hall. Through the glass door, Amara could see him lying still in the hospital bed. Tubes and wires connected to his arms and chest. His face was pale, but peaceful. "You ready?" she asked Nico. Another nod. They went in together. Nico stopped just inside the door, staring at his father. Amara knelt down beside him. "It's okay to be scared," she whispered, "but he's still here, still fighting to come back to you." She pulled a children's book from her bag. The Little Prince. She'd grabbed it from the library on their way here. "Should we read to him?" she asked Nico. This time, Nico took a step closer to the bed, then another. Amara sat in the chair beside Dante and opened the book. Nico climbed onto her lap, his eyes still fixed on his father's face. "Once when I was 6 years old," Amara began, "I saw a magnificent picture in a book." As she read, her voice gentle and steady, something strange happened. The heart monitor beside Dante's bed started beeping a little faster, just slightly, like maybe somewhere deep in his unconscious mind he could hear them. Nico noticed it too. He looked at the machine, then at his father, then at Amara. "Keep reading," he whispered. So she did, chapter after chapter until visiting hours were almost over, and the whole time Dante's heart beat just a little stronger, a little more alive. When they got ready to leave, Nico surprised her. He leaned over the bed rail and kissed his father's forehead. "Come home, Papa," he said, so quietly Amara almost missed it. But the heart monitor heard. It blipped faster for just a moment, like an answer. Back at the house, Enzo was waiting with news that made Amara's stomach twist. "We got the security footage from the street," he said, showing her a tablet with grainy black and white video. "The shooters weren't random. They were specifically targeting Dante." Amara watched the screen, seeing herself step in front of Nico just seconds before the cars arrived. "How do you know?" They waited, watched the house for 3 days before making their move. Enzo's jaw was tight. Someone wanted Dante dead, and they didn't care who got hurt in the process, including Nico. That night, Amara had trouble sleeping. Every sound in the big house made her jump, every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the windows. Around midnight, she heard something that made her sit up, crying, soft and muffled. She slipped out of bed and across the hall to Nico's room. He was curled up in a ball, tears streaming down his face, having a nightmare. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You're safe, I'm here." Nico's eyes opened, unfocused and scared. "Bad dream?" she asked. He nodded and reached for her. She pulled him into her arms, feeling how small and fragile he was, how much he needed someone to hold him together. "Want to tell me about it?" "Mama," he whispered. "She was in the car, and then she was gone." Amara's heart broke for him, this little boy who'd lost so much and was trying to be brave. "Dreams can be really scary," she said, "especially when they're about people we miss. I dream about Papa too, that he doesn't wake up." Amara closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his fear. "You know what I think? I think your Papa is fighting really hard to come back to you, and he's going to keep fighting until he does." "How do you know?" "Because that's what dads do. They never stop trying to get back to their kids." Nico was quiet for a long time. "Then, will you stay? Until I fall asleep?" "Of course." She started humming again, the same soft melody from the night before. Nico's breathing slowly evened out, his small body relaxing against her. But just as she started to get up, his hand caught hers. "Amara." "Yes, sweetheart. Are you going to leave too?" The question hit her like a punch. This little boy who'd lost his mother, who might lose his father, was terrified that she would abandon him too. "Not until your dad comes home," she promised, "and even then I'll always be your friend, always." Nico squeezed her fingers twice, a pattern she was starting to recognize, his way of saying "I'm here" or "thank you" or "I trust you." She squeezed back twice, their secret code. The next morning brought newspapers. Enzo showed her the headlines over coffee, his expression grim. "Mafia boss fights for life," one read. "Street shooting rocks Brooklyn." But the one that made Amara's blood boil was from a gossip blog. "Delivery girl plays nanny to crime family. Sources say even the help is laughing." "They're making fun of me," she said, staring at the screen. "They're idiots," Rosa said firmly. It was the first time she'd spoken directly to Amara in English. "You saved that boy. Ignore the stupid people." Amara looked at Rosa in surprise. The older woman's stern face had softened just slightly. "You think I don't see," Rosa continued. "How he eats when you cook for him, how he sleeps when you sing. That boy hasn't been okay since his mama died, but with you. She shrugged. With you, he remembers how to be a child. I'm not trying to replace his mother, Amara said quickly. No, you're not replacing, you're... Rosa searched for the word. Healing. Enzo looked up from his phone. There's something else. The audio from Dante's body camera. From right before he collapsed. He played a recording. Dante's voice, weak but clear. She stays with him. Whatever happens to me, she stays with Nico. The kitchen went quiet. Even Rosa stopped moving. He chose you, Enzo said to Amara. Before he even knew you. He saw what you did for his son, and he chose you. Amara felt something shift inside her chest. A warmth that was equal parts honor and terror. Dante had trusted her with the most precious thing in his world. There's more, Enzo said, his voice getting darker. We know who ordered the hit. Rocco Mancini. Rosa made a sound like she'd been slapped. That animal. He's been trying to take over Dante's territory for years, Enzo explained. This was his move. Kill Dante, grab power, eliminate any threats. What about Nico? Amara asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Loose end, Enzo said simply. Kids remember things. Kids grow up wanting revenge. Amara felt sick. Someone wanted to hurt Nico just because of who his father was, because of blood and business and things a 7-year-old boy couldn't possibly understand. So what do? We protect him, and we wait for Dante to wake up. Enzo's eyes were hard, because when he does, Mancini is going to wish he'd never been born. The days started to find a rhythm. Amara would wake up early and make breakfast while Rosa prepared for the day. Nico would come downstairs in his pajamas, hair messy, always looking for her first. They'd eat together. Sometimes Nico would eat a lot, sometimes just a few bites, but he always tried when Amara encouraged him. After breakfast, they'd spend time in the music room. Amara's piano playing was getting better, and Nico was learning to follow along. He was still mostly quiet, but music seemed to unlock something in him, a piece of joy that hadn't been lost. In the afternoons, they'd visit Dante. Every day, Amara read to him, sometimes children's books, sometimes news articles about good things happening in the world. She wanted him to hear hope, not just sadness, and every day his heart monitor responded, like he was listening, like he was fighting to come back. Nico started talking to his father too, just a few words at first. I learned a new song, Papa. Rosa made your favorite cookies. Amara says you're getting stronger. One afternoon, as they sat beside Dante's bed, Nico asked the question Amara had been dreading. What if he doesn't wake up? Amara set down the book she'd been reading and looked at him. Are you worried about that? Everyone says he will, but what if everyone is wrong? Then we'll figure it out, she said honestly. Together. But Nico, your dad is the strongest person I've ever seen. Even hurt, even asleep, I can feel him fighting. How? She took Nico's small hand and placed it over Dante's. Feel that? His heartbeat is getting stronger every day. The doctors say his brain activity is increasing. That means he's working hard to come back to you. Nico was quiet for a long moment, his hand still resting on his father's chest. I was afraid, he whispered. When Mama died, I was afraid Papa would die too, and then I'd be all alone. But you're not alone, Amara said. You have Rosa and Enzo and me, and you have your dad, even when he's sleeping. Love doesn't go away just because someone is hurt. Promise? I promise. That night, Nico fell asleep holding her hand, and for the first time since this all started, Amara let herself imagine staying, really staying, not just until Dante woke up, but maybe longer. The house was starting to feel less like a museum and more like a home. Rosa had taught her how to make Nico's favorite soup. Enzo had shown her the security systems and explained how to stay safe. Even the other staff had stopped staring at her like she didn't belong. But it was more than that. It was the way Nico looked for her when he woke up, the way he saved half his cookies to share with her, the way he'd started humming her grandmother's lullaby when he was happy. He wasn't just healing, he was bringing her back to life too. On Thursday, exactly 1 week after the shooting, everything changed. They were in the music room, working on a simple song together, when Enzo burst through the door. His face was pale. We need to leave. Now. What happened? Amara stood up, pulling Nico close. Mancini's people were spotted 2 blocks away. They're not supposed to know about this house. Enzo was already moving, gathering things. Somehow they found us. Rosa appeared with 2 bags already packed. I put clothes for both of you, she said to Amara, and Nico's important things. Where are we going? Nico asked, his voice small and scared. Somewhere safe, Amara said. trying to keep the fear out of her voice. Just for a little while, but inside her heart was racing. They'd found them. Despite all the security, all the precautions, the people who wanted to hurt Dante's family had tracked them down. As they rushed through the house toward the garage, Amara made herself a promise. No matter where they were going, no matter how long this took, she wasn't going to let anyone hurt Nico, not while she was breathing. The garage door opened onto a cold, grey morning. 3 black cars waited, engines running. Enzo helped them into the middle car, checking his phone constantly. "The safe house is 2 hours away," he said as they pulled out. "Near the water, more isolated." Nico pressed against Amara's side, his small body tense with worry. She wrapped her arm around him and started humming softly, the same melody that had become their anchor. "Are we coming back?" he asked. Amara looked out the window at the neighborhood disappearing behind them, the house that had started to feel like home, the music room where Nico had found his voice again. "I don't know, sweetheart," she said honestly, "but wherever we go, we'll be together, and that's what matters." As the cars moved through the city, heading toward the unknown, Amara thought about Dante lying unconscious in his hospital bed, fighting to wake up, fighting to come home to his son. She closed her eyes and sent him a silent message. "We're keeping him safe. Keep fighting. We need you to come back." The convoy turned onto the highway, picking up speed. Behind them, Brooklyn grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. But Nico's hand stayed firmly clasped in hers. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. The safe house sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was smaller than the townhouse, but felt warmer somehow, like a real home instead of a fortress. "This was Elena's favorite place," Enzo explained as he carried their bags inside. "She used to bring Nico here when he was little. Before..." He didn't finish the sentence, he didn't have to. The house was simple but comfortable. A big living room with windows facing the water. A kitchen that smelled like salt air and lemon. 3 bedrooms upstairs, each one bright and welcoming. Rosa immediately started opening windows and checking the refrigerator. "Someone stocked food," she announced. "Good. The boy needs to eat." Nico wandered through the rooms like he was remembering something. In the living room, he stopped in front of a framed photo on the mantel. Dante and Elena and tiny Nico, maybe 3 years old, building a sandcastle on the beach below. "We came here for my birthday," he said quietly. "Mama made a cake shaped like a castle. It fell over, but Papa said it was the most beautiful cake he'd ever seen." Amara knelt beside him, looking at the photo. "They look so happy." "They were always happy together," Nico said. "Before Mama got sick." Amara felt a chill. "Sick? I thought your mother was in an accident." Nico's face scrunched up, confused. "She was. But first she was sick. That's why she was going to the doctor. Papa was supposed to drive her, but he had work. So she went alone." Amara's blood went cold. She looked at Enzo, who was standing very still by the door. "Nico," Enzo said carefully, "why don't you go help Rosa in the kitchen?" "But I want to tell Amara about..." "Kitchen, now." Something in Enzo's tone made Nico obey. When he was gone, Enzo closed the living room door. "He doesn't know the whole truth," he said quietly. "Elena wasn't sick. That was the cover story. She was going to testify against Mancini in a federal case. Money laundering. So the accident was meant to silence her. But Dante has always blamed himself. He should have driven her that day, should have protected her." Enzo's voice was full of old pain. The guilt almost destroyed him. Amara sank onto the couch, processing this new information. Elena hadn't just been Dante's wife. She'd been brave enough to stand up to criminals. And she died for it. Does Nico know she was testifying? No. As far as he knows, his mother was going for a regular checkup and got hit by a drunk driver. Enzo sat across from her. Dante wanted to protect him from the truth, from knowing that people killed his mother on purpose. But he knows about his father's business. Some. He knows Papa is important, that people respect him, but he doesn't understand the details. Enzo rubbed his forehead. Dante tried to keep that world separate, to give Nico as normal a childhood as possible. Amara thought about the little boy in the kitchen, helping Rosa make lunch, still innocent despite everything he'd been through, still able to trust and love and hope. "What happens now?" she asked. "We wait, and we keep him safe, and we pray Dante wakes up soon." Through the window, Amara could see the ocean stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Beautiful, but lonely. A good place to hide, but also a good place to heal. "Enzo," she said, "when this is over, when Dante is awake and Mancini is dealt with, what happens to me?" He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. That's up to Dante. And you. I care about Nico, more than I expected to. I can see that, and he cares about you too, more than anyone since his mother died. I don't want to confuse him. Make him think I'm trying to replace her. You're not replacing anyone, Enzo said firmly. You're giving him something he needs, something he hasn't had in 2 years. You're giving him someone who puts him first, who sees him as just a kid, not the heir to a criminal empire. Amara felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. I'm scared I'll let him down. You won't, Enzo said. You've already proven that. The question is whether you're ready for this life, because once Dante wakes up, there's no going back to normal. Before she could answer, Nico appeared in the doorway. Amara, Rosa says lunch is ready. And she made that soup you like. He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the kitchen, chattering about the view from his bedroom window and the seashells he wanted to collect on the beach. As they walked together, Amara realized something important. Normal was relative. 6 months ago, Normal was working 3 jobs and counting tips and worrying about Maya's medical bills. Now, Normal was protecting a little boy who called her name when he had nightmares, reading stories to an unconscious man who trusted her with his son's life, learning to make family soup from an Italian grandmother who decided she was worth defending. Maybe this new Normal was better than the old one, even if it was scarier, even if she had no idea what came next. The safe house settled into its own rhythm over the next few days. Mornings started with the sound of waves and Nico's footsteps running to Amara's room. Afternoons meant walks on the beach and quiet conversations while Rosa cooked dinner. Evenings brought piano practice on the small keyboard they'd found in a closet and stories read by lamplight. It should have felt like a vacation, but the constant presence of Enzo's security team reminded them all that this was hiding, not healing. On their 4th day at the safe house, they made the drive to the hospital for their daily visit with Dante. The new routine meant longer travel time, but Amara insisted they maintain the connection. Nico needed to see his father, and somehow she was starting to believe Dante needed to hear them. Tell me again about the waves, she said to Nico as they walked down the hospital corridor. What do they sound like? Like singing, Nico said, swinging her hand. But sad singing, like they miss something. Maybe they miss the shore when they're far out at sea. Maybe they miss the fish. Amara smiled. Maybe they do. In Dante's room, the machines hummed their familiar song, but something was different today. His color looked better, less pale, more alive. Good morning, Amara said to him, settling into her usual chair. We're back. Nico has been collecting seashells to show you. Nico climbed onto her lap and pulled a small bag from his pocket. Look, Papa, this one looks like your coffee cup, and this one has stripes like your tie. He held each shell close to his father's hand, describing them in careful detail. Amara watched Dante's face for any sign of response. That's when she saw it, the smallest flutter of his eyelids. Nico, she whispered, keep talking to him. Papa, remember when we built that big sandcastle, and the waves came and knocked it down, but you said we'd build a bigger one next time? Another flutter, stronger this time. Amara reached for the call button, her heart racing. But before she could press it, Nico did something that made her breath catch. He started humming their piano song, the simple melody they'd been practicing together, off-key but full of love. Dante's fingers moved, just slightly, but definitely moved. Nico, Amara said, her voice barely steady, put your hand on your dad's. Keep humming. Nico placed his small hand over his father's larger one and continued the song. And then, like a miracle, Dante's fingers closed gently around his son's hand. Papa, Nico whispered. Dante's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then searching. They found Nico's face and stopped. Nico, he breathed. His voice was rough from sleep and tubes, but it was his voice. You're awake. Nico threw himself forward, careful of all the wires, pressing his face against his father's chest. You came back. Dante's free hand came up to stroke his son's hair, shaky but sure. Always, he whispered. Always come back to you. Then his eyes found Amara. She was still sitting in the chair, tears streaming down her face, her hand over her mouth. You, he said. His voice was questioning but not unfriendly. This is Amara, Nico said, not lifting his head from his father's chest. She kept me safe. She reads to you every day. She taught me piano. Dante's gaze never left Amara's face. Thank you, he said simply. But those 2 words carried the weight of everything. Gratitude, recognition, something deeper that made Amara's chest tight with emotion she couldn't name. "You're welcome," she whispered. The next hour was chaos. Doctors and nurses flowing in and out, tests and questions and adjustments to machines. Enzo arrived within 20 minutes, his face showing relief so profound it was almost painful to watch. Through it all, Dante kept Nico close, one hand always touching his son, like he needed to confirm he was real and safe. But his eyes kept finding Amara too, watching her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. "He'll need at least another week in the hospital," Dr. Martinez explained to their small group gathered in the family conference room. "His body has been through tremendous trauma, but all signs point to a full recovery." "When can he go home?" Nico asked. He'd barely left his father's side since Dante woke up. "Soon," the doctor said with a smile. "Very soon." Back in Dante's room, Enzo briefed him on everything that had happened while he was unconscious. Security measures, Mancini's threats, the move to the safe house. Dante listened without interruption, his hand still holding Nico's. When Enzo finished, Dante was quiet for a long moment. "You stayed," he said to Amara. "It wasn't a question. Nico needed someone. You could have left, called social services. Let someone else deal with it." Amara looked at Nico, who was dozing against his father's side, finally peaceful. "No," she said. "I couldn't." "Why?" It was such a simple question, but the answer was complicated. She thought about that first night when Nico wouldn't let go of her hand, about the way he'd whispered piano and brought music back into his mother's room, about the promises she'd made in the dark, and the way this strange, broken family had somehow become her family too. "Because he's special," she said finally. "And he was scared, and sometimes you just know when you're supposed to be somewhere." Dante's expression softened. "Elena used to say things like that, about fate, about being where you're meant to be." It was the first time anyone had mentioned his wife directly to Amara. The comparison should have felt uncomfortable. Instead, it felt like acceptance. "She sounds like she was a wise woman." She was. Dante's voice got quiet. "I failed to protect her. You protected Nico, and you protected me even when you were hurt. That has to count for something." Dante studied her face. "Enzo says you've been reading to me every day." Amara felt her cheeks warm. I thought maybe you could hear us. The monitors would change when we talked to you." "I could hear you," he said, his voice soft with wonder. "Not everything, but your voice. And Nico's. You kept me tethered." The weight of that admission settled between them. This strong, dangerous man admitting that her voice had been his anchor in the darkness. "I'm glad," she said, and meant it. That night at the safe house, everything felt different, lighter. Nico chattered through dinner about all the things he wanted to show his father when he came home. Rosa smiled more than she had in days. Even Enzo seemed to relax slightly. But Amara felt restless, like something had shifted, and she wasn't sure where she fit anymore. She walked out onto the deck after dinner, listening to the waves and thinking about Dante's eyes when he'd said thank you. There had been something there, something that made her heart race in a way that had nothing to do with fear. "You okay?" Enzo joined her at the railing. "He's awake," she said. "That's what we wanted. But everything changes now. He doesn't need me anymore. Nico has his father back." "You think that's true?" Amara turned to look at him. "Isn't it? Kid's been asking every 5 minutes when you're coming back to the hospital. And Dante..." Enzo shook his head. "I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you today. We barely know each other. Sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes you just know." It was the same thing she'd said about staying with Nico, about being where you're supposed to be. "This world," she said, gesturing around them. "Your world. I don't understand it. How you understand the important parts. Family, loyalty, protection." Enzo was quiet for a moment. "The rest is just details. Details that could get people killed." "Yes," he said honestly, "they could. But so could crossing the street, or getting in your car, or falling in love. Everything has risks." Amara thought about her old life, working 3 jobs and still coming up short, worrying about Maya's health and their rent, and whether there would be enough food at the end of the month. That had been risky too in its own way. "He'll want to thank me properly," she said. "Maybe offer me money, a job, something to show his gratitude. And then I'll go back to my real life." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure what her real life was anymore. The apartment felt small and distant now. Her delivery job seemed like something from another person's story. "What if he offers you something else?" Enzo asked. "Like what?" "Like a chance to stay, really stay." Not just as Nico's caretaker, but as part of the family. Amara's heart stuttered. That's not... People don't just become part of families, don't they? You think Rosa was born into this? Or me? Dante's father took me in when I was 16 and had nowhere to go. Rosa came to work for them when she was 20 and never left. Family isn't always about blood. Through the window, they could see Nico in the living room, playing his keyboard and humming, happy in a way he hadn't been since his mother died. He needs stability, Amara said, not someone who's still figuring out her own life. Maybe you need each other. Before Amara could respond, Nico appeared in the doorway. Amara, I wrote a song for Papa. Want to hear it? She followed him inside, pushing her complicated feelings aside. Whatever came next, tonight was about celebrating. Tonight was about the miracle of a father coming back to his son. The song was simple, but sweet. A melody about coming home and being safe and love that doesn't go away even when you're sleeping. That's beautiful, sweetheart, she said when he finished. Will you sing it with me tomorrow? For Papa? Of course. As she tucked Nico into bed that night, he asked the question she'd been dreading. When Papa comes home, are you leaving? I don't know yet, she said honestly. I don't want you to leave. I know. But sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. What if I asked you to stay? Would that help? Amara looked at his serious little face, so much like his father's. It would help me know how you feel. But there are other things to consider too. Like what? Like whether your dad wants me to stay, and whether it's the right thing for your family. Nico was quiet for a moment, then, I think Mama would have liked you. The words hit her like a physical blow. What makes you say that? Because you take care of people, and you make sad songs happy, and you stayed when everyone else would have left. Amara kissed his forehead, her eyes burning with tears. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. Will you think about staying? Really think about it? I will. I promise. And as she sat in the dark, listening to his breathing even out, she realized she was already thinking about it, had been thinking about it since the moment Dante's eyes opened and found hers. The question wasn't whether she wanted to stay. The question was whether she was brave enough to try. The next few days blurred together in a routine of hospital visits and careful conversations. Dante was getting stronger, spending more time awake and alert. The doctors were pleased with his progress. But Amara found herself watching him in ways that made her nervous. The way his face softened when Nico climbed into his bed. The way he listened carefully when she read, like every word mattered. The way he seemed to see straight through her careful politeness to something deeper. You don't have to keep coming, he said during one visit, while Nico was down the hall with Rosa, charming the nurses. I know this isn't what you signed up for. Neither was getting shot protecting a stranger's child, Amara pointed out. But here we are. Here we are. He agreed. He was sitting up in bed now, color back in his face, looking more like the powerful man she'd glimpsed in family photos. Enzo says you've been staying at the safe house. Just until you're well enough to come home, Nico needs routine. And after that? There it was. The question they'd both been avoiding. I haven't decided, she said carefully. What's holding you back? The honesty of the question surprised her. Most people would have danced around it, made polite conversation, avoided the awkward truth. Fear, mostly, she admitted. This isn't my world. I don't understand the rules. What rules? How to be around dangerous people, how to keep secrets, how to live with the knowledge that someone might try to hurt the people I care about. You've been doing all of that for 2 weeks. He was right. She had been, and somehow she'd survived it. What about you? She asked. What do you want? Dante was quiet for a long moment. I want my son to be happy and safe and loved. He is all of those things. Because of you. The simple statement hung between them. True, but complicated. He's a special kid, Amara said. He would have found his way back to happiness eventually. Maybe, but not as quickly, and not as completely. Dante's eyes found hers. You brought light back into his world, into our house. I can't ask you to give up your life for that, but I can't pretend I want you to leave either. Amara felt her heart speed up. Dante, I know it's complicated. I know I'm asking a lot, but would you consider staying? Not as hired help, as family. The word hung between them. Family. Not the family she'd been born into, but the one she'd chosen. The one that had chosen her back. I need time to think, she said. Take all the time you need, but know that whatever you decide, you'll always have a place here. Both you and your sister, always. Before she could respond, Nico burst through the door with Rosa behind him. Papa, The nurse said you might come home tomorrow if you can walk to the end of the hall. Is that so? Dante smiled at his son, but his eyes flicked to Amara. Then I guess I better start practicing. That afternoon, Amara watched Dante take his first real steps since the shooting, slow but determined, with Nico holding his hand and encouraging him every step of the way. And as she watched father and son together, she realized something important. She wasn't just thinking about staying for Nico anymore. She was thinking about staying for all of them, even for herself. The call came at 3 in the morning. Amara woke to the sound of her phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Maya's name on the screen. Maya, what's wrong? Amara, I'm scared. Her sister's voice was small and shaky. There are men outside our building. They've been there all night. Mrs. Chen says they're asking about you. Amara's blood went cold. She was already getting out of bed, reaching for clothes. Where are you now? Mrs. Chen's apartment. She let me climb through the window. But Amara, what if they come back? What if they find out I'm your sister? They won't, Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm going to call someone, okay? Someone who can help. Just stay where you are and don't open the door for anyone. She ended the call and immediately dialed Enzo. They found Maya, she said the moment he answered. I'm on my way. Within an hour, Enzo's people had Maya safe and were bringing her to the safe house. But the message was clear. No one connected to Dante was beyond Mancini's reach. Amara stood on the deck watching for headlights, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and rage. These people had threatened her sister, had made a 15-year-old girl afraid in her own home. They're here, Enzo said from behind her. The car pulled up and Maya got out. Looking small and scared and younger than her 15 years, she ran straight to Amara, wrapping her arms around her like she was afraid to let go. I'm okay, Amara whispered into her hair. You're okay. We're both okay. Who are these people? Maya asked, looking around at the unfamiliar faces, the armed security, the house on the cliff. Amara, what have you gotten involved in? It was a fair question, and one that deserved an honest answer. Remember when Mum got sick and we had to take care of her? Amara said. How scared we were, but we did it anyway because she was family. Maya nodded. I met a little boy who needed someone to take care of him. His dad was hurt, and he was alone and scared, so I stayed. And now, she looked around at the people who had become her world. Now they're family too. Complicated family, Maya said, but she was looking at Nico, who had appeared in the doorway in his pajamas, curious about the newcomer. Very complicated, Amara agreed. But family. Rosa appeared with hot chocolate and warm clothes. Within an hour, Maya was fed and settled in the guest room, her immediate needs taken care of. But as Amara lay in bed that night, listening to her sister's breathing in the room next door, she knew everything had changed again. Mancini wasn't just threatening Dante and Nico anymore. He was threatening her family too, and that made this personal in a way it had never been before. Tomorrow Dante would come home, and together they would have to decide how to end this, once and for all. Dante came home on a Thursday morning when the ocean was calm and the sky was the color of hope. Amara watched from the deck as Enzo's car pulled into the driveway. Nico had been awake since dawn, too excited to eat breakfast, checking the window every 5 minutes. He's here, Nico shouted, running for the front door. Dante stepped out of the car slowly, still careful of his healing shoulder. He was thinner than before and there were new lines around his eyes, but he was standing. He was whole. Nico launched himself into his father's arms with the fearlessness of a child who knows he's completely loved. Dante caught him carefully, holding him close, his eyes closing for a moment like he was memorizing the feeling. Welcome home, Amara said when they reached the deck. Thank you. His voice was warm, grateful, but there was something else in his eyes, something that made her pulse quicken. Maya appeared beside Amara, curious about this man her sister had turned their lives upside down for. Dante's gaze shifted to her, taking in the family resemblance, the protective way Amara moved closer to her sister. You must be Maya, he said. I'm Dante. I'm very sorry you were frightened because of our situation. It wasn't your fault, Maya said simply. Bad people do bad things, that's not on you. Amara felt a surge of pride, her little sister, wise beyond her years. Still, Dante said, you're safe now, both of you. I give you my word. And somehow when he said it, Amara believed him. The next few days were a strange kind of peace. Dante was home but still recovering, spending most of his time with Nico, catching up on 2 weeks of missed bedtime stories and piano lessons and small conversations that meant everything. Amara found herself watching them together, seeing how natural they were with each other. how much love there was between father and son. It made her happy and sad at the same time. Happy because Nico had his dad back. Sad because maybe now he didn't need her as much. "You're thinking too loud," Rosa said one afternoon as they prepared dinner together. "Sorry? The thinking. I can hear it from here. You think now that Dante is home? You don't belong." Amara stopped chopping vegetables. "Don't I?" "Stupid girl," Rosa said, but her voice was fond. "You think that man looks at you like a temporary babysitter? I don't know how he looks at me." "Then you are blind as well as stupid." Through the kitchen window they could see Dante and Nico on the beach below, building a sandcastle. Maya was with them, helping Nico collect shells for decoration. They looked like a family. "He lost his wife," Amara said quietly. "I can't compete with that memory." "Who says you have to compete?" Rosa wiped her hands on her apron and turned to face Amara. "Love is not a competition. It's not a replacement. Sometimes it's just the next chapter." "What if I'm not ready for the next chapter?" "What if you are?" That night, after dinner and piano practice and all the gentle routines that had become their rhythm, Dante asked to speak with her alone. They walked to the end of the dock, where the ocean stretched dark and endless toward the horizon. Stars were just beginning to appear in the deepening sky. "I need to tell you something," Dante said. "Tomorrow, this ends." Amara's stomach dropped. "What ends?" "Mancini. The threat. All of it." His voice was calm, matter-of-fact. "Enzo has been tracking him. We know where he is. It's time." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to finish what he started. And when it's over, Nico will be safe. Your sister will be safe. All of us will be safe." Amara felt cold despite the warm night air. "And you? Will you be safe?" "I'll be careful." "That's not the same thing." Dante turned to look at her, his face serious in the moonlight. "Are you worried about me?" "Yes," she said honestly. "I'm terrified." "Why?" The question was so direct, so vulnerable, that it took her breath away. "Because," she said, and then stopped. "Because the truth was complicated and scary and would change everything." "Because?" "Because somewhere along the way I stopped being able to imagine my life without you in it." The words hung between them like a bridge neither of them had expected to cross. "Amara," Dante said, and her name sounded different in his voice, softer, like a prayer. "I know it's crazy," she said quickly. "I know we barely know each other, and this whole situation is insane, and you loved your wife, and I'm just the delivery girl who happened to be in the right place at the wrong time." "Stop." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body. "You're not just anything. You're the woman who saved my son, who read to me when I couldn't wake up, who brought music back into our house, who made Nico laugh again. Dante, you're the woman I've been falling in love with while pretending I was just grateful." The admission hit her like lightning. "What?" "I love you," he said simply. "I love your courage and your kindness, and the way you sing to Nico when you think no one is listening. I love how you challenge Rosa and make Enzo smile and never back down when something matters to you." Amara felt tears burning her eyes. "This is happening too fast. Is it? Or has it been happening since the moment you stepped in front of my son?" She thought about that night, the gunshot and the fear, and the way everything had changed in an instant. Maybe he was right. Maybe love didn't always follow a schedule. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Of me, of this, of caring so much about people I could lose." "You think I'm not scared?" Dante's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "I lost Eleanor. I almost lost Nico. I could lose you too. But being scared doesn't mean we stop loving." "What does it mean?" "It means we love harder, fight harder, hold on tighter to what matters." He leaned down and kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. When they broke apart, Amara was breathless. "Come back to me tomorrow," she whispered. "Come back safe." "I will," he promised. "I have too much to live for now." Dante left before dawn. Amara woke to find his side of the bed cold and a note on her pillow. "Keep them safe. I'll be home for dinner." The confidence in those words should have been comforting. Instead, they made her more nervous. Nico sensed something was different at breakfast. He was quieter than usual, picking at his food. "Where's Papa?" he asked. "Work," Rosa said simply. "He'll be back tonight." "What kind of work?" Amara and Rosa exchanged glances. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that his father has gone to end a war? "The kind that keeps us safe," Amara said finally. Nico seemed to accept that, but he stayed close to her all day, like he was afraid she might disappear too. They spent the morning on the beach, building elaborate sandcastles with Maya. In the afternoon, they played piano and read stories. Normal things, peaceful things. But Amara's phone stayed silent, and that silence felt ominous. At 4 o'clock, Enzo called. "It's done," he said simply. "And Dante?" "Alive, unhurt." On his way home, Amara sank into a chair, relief flooding through her. What about Mancini? Not a problem anymore. The details don't matter. What matters is it's over. Really over. Really over. That evening, as the sun was setting over the water, Dante's car pulled into the driveway. Nico ran out to meet him, and Amara watched from the window as father and son embraced. When Dante looked up and saw her watching, he smiled. A real smile, free and happy, and full of promise for tomorrow. "So what happens now?" Maya asked the next morning over breakfast. She was sitting between Nico and Rosa, looking more relaxed than she had since arriving. "Do we go home?" It was a fair question. The threat was over. Dante was safe. Nico had his father back. "That depends," Dante said, looking at Amara. "Do you want to go home?" Amara thought about their old apartment, small and cramped and always too cold in winter. She thought about working 3 jobs just to make ends meet, about worry being a constant companion. Then she looked around the table, at Rosa teaching Maya how to fold napkins properly, at Nico humming while he ate his pancakes, at Dante watching her with eyes full of love and hope. "I think," she said slowly, "I'm already home." Dante's smile was like sunrise. "In that case," he said, "I have some things to take care of in the city. Legal things, business things, making sure everything is properly settled." "How long will that take?" Nico asked, suddenly worried. "A few days, maybe a week." Dante reached over and ruffled his son's hair. "But then we'll go back to Brooklyn, to our real house. All of us. All of us." Nico looked at Amara. "You're really staying, if you'll have me," she said. "Forever." Amara looked at Dante, who was watching this conversation with an expression of barely contained joy. "Well," she said, "that depends on your dad." Dante stood up and walked around the table to kneel beside her chair. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box. "Amara Brooks," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You saved my son. You saved me. You brought love back into our lives when I thought it was gone forever. Will you marry me? Will you be Nico's mother and my wife and make this family complete?" Amara stared at the ring, then at Dante, then at Nico, who was bouncing in his chair with excitement. "Say yes," Nico demanded. "Say yes, say yes, say yes." "Yes," Amara laughed, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, yes." Dante slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like it was meant to be there. Then he kissed her, while Nico cheered and Rosa wiped her eyes, and Maya muttered something about fairy tales coming true. "Welcome to the family," Dante whispered against her lips. "Welcome home," she whispered back. 3 months later, the Brooklyn townhouse hummed with activity on a Sunday morning. Rosa was in the kitchen making her famous pancakes, the smell filling the whole house. Enzo sat at the kitchen table, teaching Nico how to shuffle cards, while Maya did homework at the counter. Amara stood at the window in the music room, watching Dante in the garden with their neighbor's dog, a golden retriever named Sunshine, who had decided Dante was his new best friend. "The window's open," Nico said from the piano bench. "Yes, it is," Amara said, turning to smile at him. "Papa used to keep them closed all the time before you came. People change. When they feel safe, they want to let the light in. Do you feel safe?" Amara looked around the room where she'd first heard Nico speak, where they'd made music together and started to heal, where Dante had told her he loved her just last week, right here by the piano. "I feel home," she said. "That's better than safe," Nico said wisely. "Much better." The front door opened and closed, and a moment later Dante appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath from playing with the dog. "Good morning, beautiful," he said to Amara. "Good morning, husband." They'd been married for 2 weeks now, a small ceremony in the garden with just family and a few close friends. Nico had been the ring bearer, walking very seriously down the aisle with their rings tied to a silk pillow. "Morning, Papa. Want to hear our new song?" "Always," Dante said, settling beside Nico on the piano bench. Amara took her usual spot on Dante's other side, and together they played a simple melody that somehow sounded like everything they'd been through. The fear and the hope and the love that had surprised them all. "I have news," Dante said when they finished. "Good news?" Amara asked. "The best news. The adoption paperwork went through. It's official. Amara felt her heart expand until it felt too big for her chest. Really, really. Maya Brooks Moretti and Amara Brooks Moretti, both legally part of this family now. Nico threw his arms around both of them. We're really, really, really family now. We were always really family, Amara said, kissing the top of his head. Now we just have the paperwork to prove it. From the kitchen came the sound of Rosa calling them for breakfast. Maya's voice joined in, complaining that Enzo was cheating at cards. Normal Sunday morning chaos. Ready for pancakes? Dante asked. Ready for everything, Amara said. As they walked to the kitchen together, Nico skipping ahead, Dante's arm around Amara's waist, she thought about how much had changed since that autumn evening when she'd stepped in front of a scared little boy. She'd lost her old life completely, her apartment, her delivery job, her careful plans for a small, safe future. But she'd gained so much more. A son who sang her grandmother's lullabies, a husband who looked at her like she was a miracle, a family that chose each other every day. In the kitchen, Rosa fussed over the perfect pancakes while Maya and Enzo argued good-naturedly about card game rules. Dante poured coffee and orange juice, making sure everyone had exactly what they needed. "Hey," he said quietly to Amara as she helped set the table. "Any regrets?" She looked around at the cheerful chaos, the people she loved, the life they'd built together from the ashes of grief and fear. "Only one," she said. His face grew concerned. "What?" "I wish I'd been brave enough to step in front of that car sooner." Dante's smile was radiant. "We found each other exactly when we were supposed to." "You think so?" "I know so. Some things are just meant to be." Outside, the Brooklyn morning was bright and full of possibility. Inside, their chosen family gathered around the table for another ordinary, extraordinary day. And when Nico asked if they could have pancakes every Sunday forever, Amara didn't hesitate. "Forever sounds perfect," she said. "Because sometimes when you're very lucky, forever starts with stepping in front of a stranger and choosing love over fear. Sometimes forever starts with refusing to let go. Sometimes forever starts with coming home to people you didn't know you were looking for. And sometimes, just sometimes, everyone stops laughing when they realize that the delivery girl and the Mafia boss and the little boy who brought them together have built something beautiful, something worth fighting for, something that looks exactly like love."